Buy now, pay later. Is it a convenient service giving you a flexible way to pay for things? Or is it a trap that you should avoid at all costs? Well, when you consider that 60% of people aged between 18 and 44 use buy now, pay later, and there's no interest on any of the repayments, they definitely are popular and they seem pretty harmless. But there's been a huge uproar in the media lately, with calls for higher regulation and crazy stories of young people falling into all-consuming debt spirals, with one 25-year-old ending up with over $40,000 worth of debt, all thanks to buy now, pay later. But is that just an outlier? Are these stories being blown out of proportion? Something's definitely not adding up here, and considering students are the most likely group to use buy now, pay later, I wanted to get to the bottom of it. So today we're going to take a deeper look into buy now, pay later services to see whether or not you should use them or stick to paying for things in full when you can afford it. But very quickly, before we dive in, and by quickly, I mean less than 6 seconds, I want to tell you all two things. One, if you like this content and you want to see more of it, we would really appreciate it if you considered subscribing. And two, a portion of this video is sponsored by WeMoney, but more on that later. See? Told you. Now I know you're probably already familiar, but basically buy now, pay later is a payment plan that allows you to pay for relatively small purchases using usually interest-free installments. So for example, let's say you were dying to get your hands on Dyson's Airwrap. Simply head in store or to their website, select the Afterpay option at checkout, and instead of forking up $764, just pay $191 today. And then in another 2 weeks time, pay another $191, and in another 2 weeks time, pay another $191, and in another 2 weeks time, pay the final payment of $191. The point is, you'll only have to pay $191 up front, and you'll be able to go home with the item in hand. But that's just Afterpay. If $191 is a little too much for you, instead you may decide you want to use Zip, where your weekly repayment could be as low as $10. Imagine having the new Airwrap or a new computer or new phone with only having spent $10 up front. Now, you're probably thinking, this does sound a little too good to be true. There has to be a catch, because why else would companies help us out like this? But rather than have me explain it, let's hear it straight from the horse's mouth, shall we? If we take a look at Afterpay's website, we can see that in 2021, they had more than 16 million active users and almost 100,000 stores using their services. So that definitely supports the idea that they're a very popular business. But how much money did they actually make in income? Well, if we go to page 31, they themselves say that their total income for 2021 was $924.7 million, just shy of $1 billion in 1 year. Now that's definitely a lot of money, but it makes you think, how on earth could they make that much money? There has to be some sort of hidden fees that we're paying, right? Well, not exactly. While it is true that Afterpay received an eye-watering $87.3 million in late fees last year, and don't worry, we'll come back to this in a moment. For those math nerds out there, you may have picked up that $87.3 million is actually less than 10% of their total income. Like I said, most buy now, pay later services don't charge us, the customers, anything in interest. So, funnily enough, the majority of their income actually comes from the stores themselves. So what happens is, shops will actually pay Zip or Afterpay or whatever buy now, pay later service there is to offer this to their customers. So if I were to go to Dyson's website and purchase that Airwrap using Afterpay, Dyson themselves would have to pay Afterpay a fee. And you can imagine, with almost 100,000 stores offering Afterpay nowadays, that is equal to a lot of income for them. Now, why do these stores even offer Afterpay in the first place, considering they have to pay a fee every time someone uses it? Well, the answer to that is actually pretty straightforward. When Afterpay is an option, stores simply get more customers and more sales, because the people who couldn't ordinarily afford to pay for the item up front are doing so because they can put it onto smaller payments. And even though the shop now has to pay a little extra in fees, they're getting more customers with more sales, so making more money overall. So at this point, it appears to be a win-win-win. The stores are happy because they have more customers, Afterpay is happy because the stores are paying them fees, and the customers are happy because they have a convenient way to buy things. But the truth is, one of these groups are actually getting screwed. And I can tell you, we're the ones losing out. And the worst part is, many of us don't even know the danger we're putting ourselves in. Remember that $87.3 million we spoke about earlier? That comes from late fees being charged to customers who miss a payment with Afterpay. Now, you may think you'll never make a late payment and so never have to incur any fees. However, in reality, around 1/3 of buy now pay later users say they have made a late payment. And almost half say that they're somewhat likely to make a late payment in the next year. So that's a pretty reliable $87 million being taken directly from our pockets and put into the pockets of Afterpay. And the scariest thing is that's just Afterpay. We haven't even considered all of the other buy now pay later services available. But late fees aren't the only problem here. These services are often compared to credit cards or personal loans, and whilst they don't charge any interest, they are certainly a form of debt. Normally, when we take on debt, we need to have a thorough background check conducted of our financial situation to essentially say, yep, we're able to pay back this loan and we're able to service any payments there may be along the way. But with buy now pay later, they don't ensure that you can actually pay back your Dyson Airwrap or your new laptop. And while that can seem restricting, there is a reason to have these checked to ensure that you're protected and you won't fall into the big dark hole of debt. So if you currently hold a buy now pay later balance, or you're in any sort of debt, and you simply want to find out more about your money situation, the one quick and easy thing I would recommend you do is download the We Money app. And don't worry, it's completely free. And you can use it to track your expenses, generate savings goals, and help you pay down your debt faster. And the reason that I recommend it to every student in Australia is because once you've downloaded the app and you've set it up, that's it. Even if you don't have the time to meticulously track everything in your financial life, you'll be able to at a glance check things like your net worth, your bank account and super balances, and your credit score. And for those of you who are a little more involved or who need that little bit of extra support, the app has a community section where Australians from all across the country provide their tips and tricks for money management, including Majella and I. So do yourself a favor, go to the link in the description and download the We Money app for free today. Falling into debt and getting trapped into late payments is the more obvious downside of buy now pay later. But there's another kind of hidden downside that is doing even more damage than the first. Buy now pay later is messing with your brain, and it's in the same way that credit cards have been scientifically proven to. 57% of users actually regret the purchases they made because they were too expensive. No matter how many times you tell yourself you're not going to overspend, you're not going to buy anything you can't afford, having the option of buy now pay later makes us believe that we can afford it. We convince ourselves that, there's no way we could afford that if we had to save up and pay for it in full, but spreading it out over a few weeks, a few months is totally fine. I can definitely afford it now. I think that if we break it up into small amounts, then it's going to be more digestible. The way it's set up has been designed so that it doesn't activate those pain centers of the brain. That thing that tells us this is a lot of money and we shouldn't take this decision lightly. And we completely forget that when we sign up for more of these services, when we have more payments coming out of our paycheck, that actually gives us less ability, less power to be able to cover any expenses that may come up in our lives. And while their marketing is there to make us believe that this form of payment option is actually supposed to liberate us, give us more control out of the money that we do have, in fact, it does the exact opposite. If we have payments on every single thing that we own, then do we really have the power to use all of our money for ourselves? And to make matters even worse, it looks like soon, if you have ever been a buy now pay later user, even if you were able to keep current with your payments and never fall into debt, there may be dire financial consequences for your future. Because with new regulation coming in, these buy now pay later providers may need to report your use of their services, and that could impact your credit score, which could ultimately hurt your ability to buy a home in the future. So, while it does seem easy and convenient, buy now pay later has the potential to completely take over your life. So I would seriously consider these points before entering into any of these services on a whim.